Penn State fans, welcome to another game week. I'm Johnny McGonigal, joined by Max Ralph here on the Blue White Breakdown podcast, presented by PennLive. Max, the Nittany Lions are 1-0 after a 34-12 season opening win at West Virginia, comfortably covering the number, comfortably winning in Morgantown. Maybe not so comfortable at halftime during that lengthy lightning delay that I'm sure they enjoyed as much as we did, as much as the fans did in Milan Puskar Stadium. Don't want to
Puskar, who knows?
Puskar Stadium. Thankfully, we're no longer in that press box in a lightning delay, Max. But the Nittany Lions are 1-0 on the season, and they've got Bowling Green coming to Beaver Stadium this weekend, noon kick on Big Ten Network. For Penn State's home opener. They've got a string of home games now upcoming before their next road trip isn't until October. Heading out to USC. We saw USC Sunday night of Labor Day weekend beat LSU, an impressive win. I don't think Penn State's going to have many issues with Bowling Green or Kent State after the bye week, and they should be undefeated going into that stretch, Max, but they still got to play the games, and we still will be in the Beaver Stadium press box this weekend for the Bowling Green game. I understand from before the podcast started, Max, you said, hey, I went through the Bowling Green game notes. Kind of a sicko move on your part. I appreciate the hustle. I love it.
A little bit.
You said that there are some interesting tidbits and connections between Penn State and Bowling Green that I didn't necessarily know some of them, and I don't think our fans, Penn State's fans and our listeners would necessarily know. So I just want to throw it to you right off the top. Go ahead, and what did you find out in the Bowling Green game notes before this?
Look, I mean, I just went to look through them to kind of familiarize myself with Bowling Green ahead of this game because I didn't know much about them, but I found some great stuff, and I wrote it all down because otherwise, I wasn't going to remember it. But we'll start out. Last week, they beat Fordham 41-17. Fordham, one of their defensive ends, is the son of former Penn State defensive line coach John Scott, and he had 4 tackles in the game. Shout out to JW. I did a photo project with him when I was in college, and he was in high school still. So he's a good kid, but had a good game against Bowling Green. But anyway, to the actual Bowling Green stuff. So Penn State safeties coach Anthony Poindexter played with Bowling Green's defensive line coach when the Ravens won the Super Bowl in that 2000 season. He also coached with Bowling Green's secondary coach at Purdue in the early 2010s. And Tom Allen recruited Bowling Green's starting quarterback Connor Bazelak to Indiana. Bazelak started at Missouri, transferred to Indiana, and Allen was the head coach there. And then Justin Lustig, the Penn State special teams coordinator, coached at Vanderbilt with Bowling Green's quarterbacks coach for the last 2 years. So there are a ton of staff connections, but here's the one. A huge shout out to Bowling Green's strategic communication staff for pulling all these out. But here's the big one. So Bowling Green head coach.
Listeners, I want to say that Max read all the ones that he read already. The ones that he just read already to you, he told me before the podcast started, but he kept one in his back pocket, and I'm literally on the edge of my seat waiting for
this. So, Bowling Green head coach Scott Loeffler, linebackers coach Steve Morrison, and passing game coordinator / wide receivers coach Eric Campbell all played at Michigan. Okay, a lot of experience with the Big Ten. James Franklin pointed it out on Monday when we talked to him. Morrison and Loeffler won against then number 7 Penn State in 1993. I'm not sure how much either of them played. Loeffler was a freshman quarterback. They won. They won the game. Number 7 Penn State. It was upset, I think. But this is the kicker. Bowling Green made sure to point out of all the things that they could point out about that game, Spike Lee was in attendance. That's all I know. Spike Lee was there when Michigan beat number 7 Penn State as Scott Loeffler and Steve Morrison played for Michigan. Spike Lee.
Wow.
That was in the game notes.
I need to meet the Bowling Green SID, their sports information director, and ask how in the hell they pulled that up.
How and why do you know that? And why did you feel it was important to put it in your game notes this week?
You know what, Max? You know what though? Like I get Penn State, Michigan tends to just get celebrities, I guess, involved. Even
It
going back to
does.
them, because I remember this was a few years ago, I believe it was. It was the Michigan Penn State game. It was at the Big House, and Flavor Flav was there, and he was supporting Michigan. He was shown on the
Yeah.
big screen supporting Michigan. And I was like, that's a slap in the face because Flavor Flav related or knows somehow Shep Garner, Penn State's former guard in
Okay.
men's
Yep.
basketball, and showed up to a Penn State game, Penn State basketball game, and took a photo with James Franklin, and then was supporting Michigan against James Franklin. And I'm just like, was there beef between the two? Is there a fallout at some point? Is Flavor Flav just kind of a bandwagon guy? I don't know.
Hey, maybe he didn't like the picture that he took with James. Maybe he got a bad angle.
Max, this is about how I thought the Penn State Bowling Green podcast was the preview podcast was going to go about 6 minutes
Yeah.
in.
Yep.
Talking about game notes and Flavor Flav and Spike Lee, but
I don't think Flavor Flav is going to be there this weekend. Just putting that out there.
I would guess not, but you never know. That man pops up out of nowhere.
That's true. That's true.
There are actual football things that we can talk about, and we will talk about right now.
A few.
Just a few. Coming into this podcast, Max, I told you, obviously we'll talk about the guys who stood out for Penn State, in the West Virginia game. But with that in the rearview mirror and looking forward to a game that Penn State is expected to win handily. I mean, they're 35-point favorites over Bowling Green, and James Franklin will be telling his players not to look over any opponent, but you also kind of figure that James Franklin and his staff know that some of the younger guys, some of the guys in the 2 and 3 deep, will likely get some extended run in this game. So I wanted to talk to you about some of those guys too. Anyone that was maybe on your radar in terms of players who didn't necessarily make an impact, or at least one in the stat sheet at West Virginia who could do this Saturday at Beaver Stadium. But before anything else, Max, just your thoughts, your takeaways from some of the player calls that we had, this week so far. We're recording this Wednesday afternoon before, Penn State's practice availability, so nothing there yet. But I know you've written a good bit already this week. I have as well. What kind of post West Virginia standouts or thoughts do you have that are just rattling around in your brain right now?
Yeah, I wrote about Bo Pribula. You had AJ Harris as well, so make sure you guys go check those out. But Bo was an interesting one because, all of last season, all we kept hearing was there's a Pribula package. There's a Pribula package. That's a tongue twister. But we just never saw it until I think it was the Michigan game. We might have seen it for the first time, and then it was like obsolete after Yurcich was fired. I mean, they used it a little bit more in the Peach Bowl and down the stretch, but Yurcich was gone. And but this year, it's not the Pribula package. It's just Bo's going to play a heck of a lot more than he did last year. And on Saturday against West Virginia, he threw a touchdown playing as a traditional quarterback. He ran for 25 yards, I think, on only 3 carries. And he also ran some routes as a wide receiver. The kid has done a really nice job, and honestly, just talking to him, you can kind of sense the way that he's just feeling comfortable in the role he has right now. I think he's accepted that Drew Aller is the quarterback and Bo has a niche role, and that's okay. They both came into the same class; those guys are close, and it was really interesting to hear from Bo about just how he has kind of grown into this role. I asked him personally, I was like, did you think when you committed that this was going to happen? And he just kind of laughed and was like, no, I didn't really think I was going to be playing wide receiver, but I did it freshman year in high school, so it's fine. So he was a good listen yesterday on Tuesday. This morning, I know you were in on Jalen Reed this morning. Andrew Rapplier was there as well. Rapp is a guy who, he was on the field a lot against West Virginia, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about him a whole lot just because I don't even think he had a target. But He is someone who runs routes really well, did a lot of work to be ready to go as far as a blocker at tight end. And I'm excited to see how he plays moving forward. I think especially against Bowling Green, where Penn State may want to be a little bit more careful with a star like Tyler Warren. Andrew Rapplier could be someone to keep an eye on. But what's the lowdown on A.J. Harris and Jalen Reed?
Yeah, Max, really quick before I touch on those two guys, just a couple of thoughts on Bo and Rap. So with Bo, just reiterating again something that me and Bob talked about earlier this week, but I thought it was a statement of intent by Andy Kotelnicki and the rest of the offensive staff that Bo was on the field for a third down. I mean, he was on the field for the third snap of the season, converting a third down. I thought that was just, a statement of like, hey, we're really going to use him this year. It's not going to be lip service. With Rap,
and it was a speed option, which is like, I was like, am I watching Penn State football right now?
If you watched Andy Kotelnicki, and I know you did, and some fans might not have gone back and watched some Kansas tape over the last couple of years, the speed option shouldn't have been a surprise. If for those who like we do, and I know Bob did, dove into Andy's tape over the last few years. I mean, he likes to do it, and he did it on the road against a hostile environment from the jump. So I thought that was a sign of confidence in what Bo can bring, this offense this season. In terms of Rap, I thought it was interesting too because Khalil Dinkins didn't play at West Virginia. He was out on the availability report, and we don't really know the extent of that injury or that absence, and so. Andrew Rapplier was the number 2 tight end in an offense that uses 2 tight ends quite a bit. So we could see more of an expanded role, not just from a playing time standpoint, snap count and everything, but if Khalil Dinkins remains out, expect Andrew Rapplier to show his teeth in the passing game as well and become a target for Drew Aller. On the defensive side of the ball, speaking to A.J. Harris and Jalen Reed this week, A.J. Harris transferring in from Georgia, former 5-star prospect in the 2023 class, played in 7 or 8 games for Georgia last year, but couldn't crack into that first team or even like a rotational role that plays a lot. So he transferred to Penn State looking for more regular playing time, and he earned it. From the time that he came in January, established himself as one of the best corners on the team. Something that James Franklin said in his Monday press conference that, at corner and other positions as well, the guys who started week 1 might not necessarily remain the starters, throughout the season, that it's a constant competition, based on game tape, based on practice reps and habits and effort and all that kind of good stuff. But A.J. Harris seems like he's got a good head screwed on his shoulders. And, he came into Penn State with the right attitude and played well. Only targeted twice at West Virginia, didn't allow a completion on either of those. 3 tackles, a pass breakup, played well. Who played really well was Jalen Reed. 9 tackles, 2 pass breakups, fumble recovery, TFL. He was all over the field from the jump. Me and Bob talked about it quite a bit, so don't want to rehash too much. But speaking of Jalen Reed, and I asked him, basically, what was your mentality going into game 1? Because this is a guy who was a full-time starter at safety last year alongside KJ Winston, who justifiably so, got some serious publicity this summer and a lot of hype and some accolades and way too early first round mock, grades and all that for KJ. I mean, he's a damn good safety, one of the best in the country, but I think Jalen even said, like, I had something to prove. I have a chip on my shoulder. I feel like sometimes I don't get the recognition I deserve. And I think that if there was ever a question that Jalen Reed is also one of the best safeties in the Big Ten, he put that to bed week 1 against West Virginia. And so the depth and the talent that Penn State has in the secondary, I don't think can go overlooked. It's so easy to look at that defensive front with Abdul Carter and, Tony Rojas and Kobe King and those guys at linebacker are obviously very talented and productive as well. But the secondary at corner has reloaded, and at safety has brought back 2 of the best in the country, Max. But I'm intrigued to see some of the younger guys on the defense get some more run this weekend. Guys on the offense get some more run this weekend against Bowling Green. And I know we mentioned a couple already, but is there 1 or 2 guys, maybe even starters, who just didn't get as much run or as much attention necessarily at West Virginia? Anyone stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, against West Virginia, guys who didn't necessarily get as much attention as I might have expected. Cam Wallace at running back is one who I think we're going to see a lot this weekend. I think you're going to see a lot of Katron Allen too, just because Nick was kind of the star on Saturday. They're going to continue to try and balance those two, keep them both happy. So I think you're going to see a lot of Katron early, and then you're going to see Cam Wallace through kind of the second, most of the third quarter. Fourth quarter, probably see some Quentin Martin, maybe some Corey Smith too. Running back will be one to look at. Obviously, wide receiver. I mean, Trey Wallace was great. We know Liam Clifford and Julian Fleming have confidence from the coaching staff. We didn't see a ton of them on Saturday in Morgantown, but they're going to be used this weekend. But there are younger wide receivers who I really want to see, just because James Franklin said it. By week 4 or 5, they're going to need some of those younger guys who haven't played a lot to be able to contribute in some capacity. So I think this weekend against Bowling Green, a MAC team, a team they're going to blow out, but maybe one of the better MAC teams this year, you're going to see like Tyler Johnson, Anthony Ivy, Tyseer Denmark, Makai Flowers, those guys at wide receiver. I think those are the two positions offensively that you really look at. I mean, you already mentioned the secondary. We could go on and on about the young guys there. There are always freshmen who are able to play in the secondary because they're so valuable on special teams. Terry Smith does a great job recruiting and developing, obviously. DeJuan Lane already played in week 1, but didn't necessarily see a lot of him. He played on special teams, but DeJuan Lane, John Mitchell, AJ Belgrave Shorter, there are guys who we're going to see that I think are going to be guys that by about week 5 you might be seeing a lot more of.
Yeah, definitely. I agree wholeheartedly with the guys on defense that you mentioned. Maybe even Dakari Nelson. At linebacker.
In that linebacker spot, yeah.
Yeah, but on the offense, and I think it's just easy to gravitate towards the offense, easier than maybe the defense because flashier and scoring points and all that kind of good stuff. But some of the guys you mentioned, like Julian Fleming, he had 30. I think it was 35 offensive snaps against West Virginia, which was tied with Harrison Wallace for the most among the receivers. So he was out there because I got a lot of emails being like, where was Julian Fleming? Now, he was not targeted. He did not have a catch. But James Franklin said on Monday that they intend on getting him more involved in the passing game. But he did some really good things outside of just catching the football that helped Penn State's offense move. Liam Clifford, one of the 2 receivers during preseason camp that got a lot of love from James Franklin and the coaching staff, him and Harrison Wallace. We saw what Harrison Wallace did, 5 catches, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wouldn't be surprised if Liam Clifford gets targets. The only 2 wide receivers who got targets at West Virginia. Now, granted, Drew Aller only threw the ball 17 times. It was Harrison Wallace and it was Amari Evans. So intrigued to see, if Clifford and Fleming make more of a tangible impact, in the stat sheet, to get on the board there. At running back, Cam Wallace, definitely one to watch. Intrigued to see how they balance, though, the Quentin Martin, Corey Smith deal, because both true freshmen, both former 5 or 4 stars, blue chip players, and guys who have great and promising futures at Penn State. But there's no need for them to play in more than 4 games each in the regular season, as long as Nick Singleton and Katron Allen stay healthy. So it's going to be a matter of maybe this week is a Quentin Martin game that he gets in, and maybe the Kent State game is a Corey Smith game for him to get in. Just something to keep in mind when we get into the fourth quarter and see who's out there and who's not out there, and maybe how they're going to stagger the red lights, really, the guys who are not green lit to burn their red shirts this season. So yeah, I'm interested to see how that all pans out on the offensive line. Maybe we see more of Cooper Cousins. And we saw a decent bit of him, at West Virginia, but maybe we see even more of him. Maybe Javen Williams gets some run. Maybe, Birchmeyer gets in there. So yeah, a lot to keep in mind. And also just to keep in mind too, I know that we were talking about 35-point favorites as Penn State, should be against this Bowling Green team, but it's not Delaware, where I don't think Olu played, if I remember correctly, against Delaware last year. Maybe he played like a series or 2.
He played like 2 series.
Yeah. So it's not going to be like that. I don't expect Penn State to go out and win like 63-7 or whatever it was last year against Delaware.
Right.
But we do think that by the time the third quarter rolls around, this should be a comfortable margin for Penn State, and that they're going to be able to get some of their younger guys in and get some valuable reps early in the season, and more. And on the flip side too, rest some of the starters. Don't expose them to unnecessary injury before what promises to be, a tricky and grueling Big Ten campaign coming up in a few weeks. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to Saturday when it comes to that, Max.
Yeah. With Julian Fleming, if you just roll back the game, I mean, you can see it on the national broadcast. You don't need an all-22 film or anything, but you can literally see on the Trey Wallace touchdown, that first long one, Wallace is coming in motion, and he and Fleming kind of cross on their way out. And, I mean, he pulled a safety off in order for Wallace to have that runway, and Fleming did the same thing with Tyler Warren's touchdown late in the game. So, that's exactly what we're talking about when we say he's out there for reasons other than just catching the ball. Up front, I do think another name that has been maybe under the radar in terms of that freshman offensive line group is Egan Boyer. I think they really like him out there, and he was on the travel roster in Morgantown. He was getting chirped pretty hard on pregame warmups from the West Virginia students, but I don't know why they picked him out of all of the guys who were standing there warming up, but you and I were both standing right there on the sideline, and Egan Boyer was getting some of the worst of it. And,
he was.
And then the other guy who, it depends on how things shake out score wise, but I think I will predict this. I think Ethan Grunkemeyer will get a series or two, and I am really excited to see him play because typically it would be Jackson Smolik, considering he's, the older guy. They do like him. They say he throws a great ball, but he had that injury. We saw him at practice, which was a little surprising, but I don't think he's anywhere near playing yet. And if it's comfortable enough, they're going to want to put Grunkemeyer out there for at least a couple snaps. And, another guy, we were watching him in warmups at Morgantown, and I thought he threw a really nice ball in warmups. So, I talked to his coach in high school, talked to him. He's a good kid, good head on his shoulders. Excited to see that. But I think that rounds out the young guys I was looking for.
Yeah. I've got one more.
Yeah, lay it on me.
I've got one more, and it's on the defensive side of the ball, and it's a walk-on. Little Dinkins. Okay. Colin Dinkins.
Yeah.
Khalil Dinkins' younger brother. He's a defensive back in that Lion role. I think he could very easily be, if not, maybe Cam Miller might be the backup there, but Colin Dinkins could be that third guy in the Lion role, and I think Terry Smith and Anthony Poindexter and Tom Allen, defensive coordinator, like what he's brought to this team and like the preseason camp that he had, and so just keep an eye on smaller Dinkins on the defensive side of the ball, but. It's going to be one of those games where, hopefully for Penn State fans' sake that just want to go to Beaver Stadium and enjoy the home opener, for the fans at home who might want to watch the first half and then, just kind of coast and have a good time in the second half and not have to worry about anything too much. Fingers crossed, Max, we don't have a damn lightning delay again. Let's just get that's out of the way now. That's not
Bob.
The rest of the season.
Bob already put it in the universe, so
he did. Yeah, Bob during our weekly staff meeting was talking about how there might be weather this weekend in State College, and Max, it was just don't put this out in the universe,
Johnny. I think you took the weather delay in Morgantown harder than most of us, and I think it's fair. You had the longer ride home, but I think you took it maybe the hardest out of anyone who was in our general vicinity in the press box.
It wasn't fun because I knew what was ahead. To give a glimpse, peek behind the curtain. So after the game, it was me, Joe Hermit, our great photographer, Bob Flounders, and Greg Pickle. We're driving from Morgantown back to Harrisburg. And then from there, I'm in Philly. I got to get to Philly. I ended up getting a hotel in Harrisburg because got back so late. Didn't get to my hotel in Harrisburg till 1:15 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I was hoping if we got there 2 hours earlier, if the delay didn't happen, that maybe I'll just push it and drive back to Philly and just coming to the realization that I wasn't going to do that, and it was going to have to be a Sunday morning, travel back to my house was just it was just too much to handle at the time, Max. I was just like, really, like, this is what we're doing. And it was just the constant churn, the constant update of like, hey, we're going to resume play. And then 2 minutes later, another lightning strike would happen. And you got to reset the lightning clock, which I found out is 30 plus minutes. It was not fun. It was not fun.
Mean, we're all sitting there, and every time they give an update, we all have the radar pulled up on our laptops, and we're like, dude, are you looking at the same thing we are? We are not starting at this time. You're crazy. But no, I got back to my place at about midnight, so it wasn't quite as bad. But I feel for you. I understand your frustration for sure.
Yeah, it is what it is, and it was week one. It afforded us time at halftime to.
It did.
Fortunately, Penn State was up, 20-6 at half, and you kind of figured that with the way the first half went, that they would continue to roll in the second half. So we're able to get a little jump start on our work, which is good, and just kind of, wrap that up as the second half went along. So that helped a little bit. I'm not a complainer. I'm not here to complain. We got it out of the way. It happened. It's not happening again this weekend. I swear, It is not happening again this weekend. And look, I think we are both in agreement that Penn State, like we've mentioned already, should roll to a pretty comfortable win against Bowling Green before bye week, and then you've got Kent State after that. And so, I mean, look, I would be surprised if Penn State isn't 5-0 at this point going in to the USC game. I think you're in agreement there, Max. Correct me if I'm wrong, but. No. But no, so we see a comfortable Penn State win. And like I mentioned, me, Max, Bob, Joe, we'll all be there at Beaver Stadium this weekend, providing you, the listeners and subscribers of PennLive coverage. Be sure to continue to read us throughout the week up into the game. We'll have a lot of good stuff coming. And our specific predictions for the game will be up on Thursday morning, as well as a whole lot of other content. So if you're not already, subscribe to PennLive. And if you're subscribed to PennLive, but you're not subscribed to our tech subscriber base, do that, because we've got a lot of different tidbits of information, just talking with us, for lack of a better word, shooting the shit with us sometimes and just talking Penn State football. More than happy to do that. And it's a lot of fun. So subscribe, keep listening, keep reading. And Max, I'll see you on Saturday in the Beaver Stadium press box.
Yes, sir. Renovated. Not the press box, but some of the stadium.
Some of the stadium. We'll get there on the press box.
Yeah, but maybe someday. Peace out.